Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. If you don't know who I am Mom from Millennial Mom, or K, and today I'm going to talk about Married at First Sight, San Diego, season 15, episode 2, Whole Wife for Life. And if you're wondering where Millennial is, she's out doing some business today, so it's just going to be me. I hope you don't mind, but she'll be back next week. All right everyone, so let's just jump into it. So today, the rest of the weddings take place, or at least they're all supposed to take place today with one exception, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So first up, we have Stasia and Nate. Dr. Pepper says they were matched based on them both being entrepreneurs and a power couple, and both can give each other the balance that they need. Well, they're going to be very interesting just based off the dynamic of what we saw from the matchmaking special through the bachelorette party. They both have similar mind frames when it comes to working, but there's something I just can't quite put my finger on when it comes to Nate. So maybe I'm wrong, hopefully I am, but we'll see as this season progresses. So Stasia reminds us of her successes, her 2 degrees, she don't have any debt, how she worked herself through college, her business adventures. She's very, very successful, which is awesome. But you know what? I don't think we all need to be reminded about these things all the time. So we'll see how this is going to play out for her as time goes on. Stasia's getting prepared to get married, and we see her mom talking about how she's worried and she wants Stasia to be, the best that she can be, and that, sometimes Stasia's first impressions of maybe just people and things can come off superficial. And Stasia's like, I don't know why you think that. I can see why her mom would say that. I mean, it's your mom. Your mom probably knows you better than anybody. But again, it's the way we keep being reminded by Stasia. Her successes, like I said, that's fine. That's great. That's amazing that you have proven yourself a success story. But if that's really what you have to base it off of for yourself internally, I don't know. We'll have, again, like I said, we'll have to see how it plays out. Now, Stasia says she's always wanted to be a wife. Okay, I think most people who come on the show say that they want to be a wife or a husband. So she's on the right show for this. Hopefully, she's here for the right reasons. And I like the fact that her mother is very supportive of her dreams and her ambitions, and her just being on the show in general. I know that's a hard thing to do for these friends and family who, are finding out at the last minute. But her mom really seems to be in her corner. So now we see Nate. And he says he's come through the storm. He's thriving. He's at the right place at the right time, been through some rough patches. And he's just ready to get married as well. He's talking about how much he's evolved as a person. And he just wants to be understood. And wants to be understood by the person that he's going to be with. But then there's a knock on the door. And gifts are exchanged. So Nate sends one to Stasia. Stasia sends one to Nate. And it turns out the gift was the same thing. It was an instant mini camera for them to take pictures on the honeymoon, stuff like that. And Nate was like, what? Wait a minute. Even Stasia's like, what? Are you sure? Because that's the gift that I gave him, and that's the gift that I gave her. And I just thought that was really cool that they both thought of something similar for the honeymoon. So right there, that shows for the moment that they're on the same page when it comes to taking pictures of their adventures and their journey in this process so far. So now we have them both meeting at the altar, and they both have smiles from ear to ear. And so one of my favorite parts is to listen to see what the friends and families have to say about them. Nate's family wants Stasia to know that he's spontaneous and likes adventures. And then they go on to say that he's a freak in the sheets. The family telling her that he's a freak in the sheets. Okay, family. So we also learned that Nate likes to watch sunsets. He likes to talk about aliens and the Mandela effect. And he even has a thing for nice teeth, which, okay, I got a thing for nice teeth. And even the pastor or the person marrying them, the officiant, was saying, ooh, you girl, you got your work cut out for you. I'm thinking, because if the family is giving you details like that, yeah. So now we move on to Stasia's family and friends, and they say how much she's independent. And of course, they bring up her successes again, which is okay because he doesn't know, but we do as the viewer. And Apparently, Stasia also sleeps with her eyes open. Because the family's like, yeah, if you up late at night and you see Stasia looking at you, she's got her eyes on you. She's like, oh, she just sleeps with her eyes open. I'm like, okay, well, that's different. And, you know, Nate rolled with the punches with that. So, again, we're going to find out how that works out. Now, after the wedding, they both get to know each other. And here goes Nate talk about her teeth. He's a teeth aficionado, okay? And then he goes in to ask her about her real estate. She's saying how she's, you know, done good for herself. And, you know, one day she just wants to retire on the things that her successes that she's built up. And I'm like, that's good, girl. You should. Because, listen, I'm trying to get there, too. And then she asks Nate what he does. And he says he does day trading and he does software sales during the day. And she's like, well, what's your hours? And then they both find out that they both can work remote anywhere from home. So they connect on that. But one thing that Stasia says that kind of, you know, put me on pause, but you know what? It's not about me. It's for Nate. How she says that she is pretty much, just to round it off, OCD. How she says, yeah, you know, my friends and my family, my mom says, you know, my house is kind of like it's for shows, not to live in. And he's kind of like, you know, then sitting there like, really? I'm like, Now that will be interesting or foretelling for when they do move into their new apartment together. Because just imagine that if Nate has anything out of place or anything that Stasia feels is out of place, how that's going to work out since she's used to living in such a environment where everything has its place, probably labeled and everything else too. So, but if you guys are like that, if you have your stuff labeled, that's cool too. But she just sounds like she's like really out there with her stuff. So after they get to know each other, they take their wedding pictures, and you know what? They were nice. At first, I thought it felt like it was a little awkward, but as the photographer took more and more pictures, they took really good ones. I saw some nice pictures at the end. So moving on to Lindy and Miguel, we were reminded about things about each person before they get married. We were reminded that they both have their doctorate degrees. Dr. Pepper says this is a happy, quirky couple and hopes they can both blossom together. So as we're watching the backstory again, we're reminded that Lindy comes from a religious background, and she's had a hard time overcoming different things in her life because she felt like her religious background kept her sheltered from doing just the smallest of things. And even when we see her picking out her wedding dress, she tries on multiple wedding dresses, not just because she doesn't care for the way it fits, but the way it looks or how it will look to, I don't know, the audience. So, you know, she does finally pick one, and I think she's still uncomfortable with what she picks, again, just based off of how she was meant to be viewed based on that religion and how women are, you know, in her background, how women were looked at. And Miguel's friends mention how he's overlooked red flags in the past because Miguel has seen his friends get married, have kids, and Miguel's getting older. He's 37, 38, and he feels like he needs to have that too, or, you know, in that lifestyle, like at a certain age, you should be married or have children, things like that. And the friends are concerned that maybe he's settling or jumping into something and not really going the right way about these things, but they come around and they're supportive. You know, they want to see him be happy and stuff like that. So I don't really necessarily see this as a match for me, but hopefully they'll surprise me. I want a couple, even all of them, to surprise me this season. I mean, I'm ready to see some matches from start to finish, and who knows, they could be one. They could help each other connect. So now we'll move on to Ben and Morgan. Now, Dr. Pepper said they were both matched on their careers and their strong family dynamic. Now, again, we're rewatching the tux and the bridal fittings and things like that. And Ben is saying how his mother's number one, which he mentioned that last week. And, you know, for some, that will be a problem with your mom being number one. I mean, he's a self-proclaimed mama's boy. And, you know, it's okay to have your mom in your life, of course, and, you know, running things by her. But when you get married, you know, your mama's no longer number one. I know that's even crazy for me to even say out my mouth, but your mama's no longer number one. It's your spouse. So I don't know how he'll be able to balance the two, to be honest. So it's going to be a sight to see. Now we have Morgan. And I think Morgan comes across as an overthinker, honestly. She says that she's in this process and everything's surreal for her, and she just wants someone, to be on her level, because there's really no going back for her and there's really no gray area. And I think Morgan has high expectations on what this process is. And there's nothing wrong with that. Since she said there's no in between, I don't think there's any room for grace or, I don't know, like give or take with Morgan. I really do think that she's overthinking right now in the beginning. I don't know if that's gonna help out in the long run. Like I said, for this particular process, you just really have to be open to everything that comes your way. Nothing, too crazy, but just for the other person, because the other person is truly a stranger. So it's really like a blind date or Groundhog Day over and over and over, except for you're married. So let's move on to Kristin and Mitch. It was said that they were matched because they were passionate about their careers. They both love the outdoors and love families and want to succeed. All right, so again, we're watching the dress and the tux fittings, and I just don't understand why they do this from week to week. We should just did the weddings and just went on from there. But Kristin, while she's finding the right dress for her, she keeps bringing up her old engagement. And we learned that her engagement and the marriage to Mitch, her old engagement would have been 4 years, almost to the day, to the month, something like that. And I'm not really sure if she's over that, because that keeps coming up in conversation. She's saying how, it wasn't about her, it was her ex, and her ex will get karma and things like that. Okay, but I don't know. I just really think that took a toll, and I'm not sure, again, like I said, if Morgan is truly ready for the process. I know she probably wants a long-term relationship, but I'm not sure if it's actual marriage right now. Just my opinion. But then we see Mitch. Mitch, he's, that's the environmentalist. Mitch, to me, is also a go with the flow kind of guy. And I also think Mitch and Miguel are in similar boats, that they're both older and they both have gone down the dating journey, and they both have seen, friends and family get married, and they're not married yet. So that's what they're looking for. But Mitch, I don't know. He just, on a different level though, I think Mitch is a wild card, and I also think Nate is a wild card for different reasons, but yet similar. That's just how I see it. But Mitch goes on to say that he hasn't really been in a relationship or a serious relationship for about 5 years. And then you have Kristin coming out of a 4-year engagement / wedding where, she's still harboring a little bit of PTSD from it, and they got that match together. And then the things from last week, the way the Kristin described the type of man that she was looking for, was the complete opposite of Mitch. But again, that's not why they were matched. They were matched because they were both passionate about their careers. They're motivated, they want to succeed, and they love their families. So, yeah. Later in the evening, Dr. Pepper calls Morgan on FaceTime to tell her that Ben has tested positive for COVID. And in order for them to get married, of course, Ben has to test negative in the next few days. Now, even though the wedding's been put on hold based on him getting better and negative tests, because, of course, you don't want him to affect her friends, family, or his friends, family, or anyone in the venue. Even though they're still going to get married, depending on the time, the honeymoon will probably be shorter based off the recovery time. And Morgan, even though she hears this news, she's afraid that maybe Ben really isn't sick, or maybe he's just lying because he has cold feet about getting married. And I'm like, I mean, that could be possible, but that would be extreme to go there. I mean, he might as well just say he didn't want to get married, but as we see in upcoming episodes, they do eventually get married. At least that's what it's presumed to be. All right, so moving on to the next morning for Lindy and Miguel's wedding. Lindy is saying again how, due to religious constraints, she wasn't allowed to do certain things. She wasn't allowed to dance or hold hands or just the normal things that most couples dating along the way would be able to do. And I see her mom is sitting there, and I believe two brothers are sitting there, and the only person there for not there for Lindy is her dad, because she said her dad doesn't approve of this process. But I think that just by Lindy being in this experiment, that shows that she's willing and able to open up. So I think what she may have to work on most is the communication factor, because she says she's not used to doing that, especially with, the opposite sex. So that might be a little bit of a hindrance as as time goes on with the journey. But now they are at the altar. And you know what? I didn't necessarily see a spark in the eye. I saw a smile from from Lindy. She was happy, but Miguel, he seemed a little bit reserved, just in my opinion. But the friends want Miguel to know that Lindy can find beauty in everything. And Dr. Lindy has a thing for family, friends, patients. She's very kind. She's very giving. They made sure to throw that doctor in there. So when it was Miguel's turn, they said, Miguel's looking for that piece of the puzzle on the floor to the puzzle that you're trying to find. Something like that. It was kind of like a rhyme. I thought it was kind of cute. And then they went on to say that Miguel is a doctor with a PhD. Now, when that was said, Lindy was like, oh, the audience was like, oh. And I'm like, see, you're not just the only doctor in the house, but they made sure to say Miguel was a doctor with a PhD in neuroscience. So as far as the vows go, I thought they were both nice. And I'm surprised that Miguel's vows didn't have any nerdy quotes in it, because again, he's a self-proclaimed nerd, so I just thought maybe he would add like a little something in there, but he didn't. Now, after the ceremony, they get to know each other, and Miguel brings out this little cube or dice or something like that. Apparently, it's from Dungeons and Dragons. So if you follow Dungeons and Dragons, you know what he's talking about. I unfortunately do not follow Dungeons and Dragons, so however he was trying to explain it to me, went over my head. So, but anyway. So again, they ask each other what they do. Lindy says she's a physical therapist. She works a few days. She could pretty much work when she feels like it, and then takes time for herself to travel, things like that. And then Miguel says that he used to sell pharmaceuticals, but now he's a medical writer. He said he doesn't sell pharmaceuticals anymore because it was boring. And so now, him being a medical writer, he could do that from home and take time to travel. And Lindsay, I keep saying Lindsay, that's from last season. And Lindy was happy to hear that. And Miguel was like, yeah, as long as there's Wi-Fi, hey, we can go anywhere. All right, so next step, we have Kristin and Mitch getting married. And here's the thing. Kristin still hasn't told her dad. And she's explained to her friends, like, well, what would you do if your dad was weird about this entire process? And then of course she goes on to mention about the wedding before and how it didn't work out. So I could see maybe where her family would be apprehensive because of the way the wedding and everything didn't work out before, but come on. And so Lindy is finally telling her dad she's getting married, and she starts from, well, I was in a matchmaking process, and it was 2 weeks ago, I've been matched. And dad was like, okay, good. Kind of apprehensive, like, yeah, okay. And then she's telling him that, well, I got matched and I'm getting married. And I'm getting married today. And the look on his face is like, what? You're getting married today? And I can understand that, because I would have the same look on my face too. Because it's like, wait, you invited me here telling me it's going to be a surprise. Well, yeah, it's a surprise. But the surprise of getting married, that's kind of a bit much. But Lindsay does mention that she's a daddy's girl, and if he doesn't give his blessing, she would be devastated. The dad says, you know, this process is a bit insane. And Lindsey's just kind of looking. And then when she asks, well, are you going to walk me down the aisle? He says he doesn't know. So we'll find out next week if he walks her down the aisle. Meanwhile, Mitch is dressed in his tux, ready, waiting to go, ready to get married. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure that Kristin's going to give herself, that she's going to portray to Mitch for this journey. And so, I don't know. This is also going to, like I said, Mitch is already a wild card to me anyway, but this seems like it's going to be a lot of work in progress. We'll have to see how the journey goes. But all right, everyone, I'm not going to keep you. That was just an overall view of the weddings. Hopefully we'll see Ben and Morgan get married next or within the next 2 weeks, and we'll see a few more receptions, and then we'll get to the honeymoon to find out where that is. Millennial will be back next week. So thank you all again for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And until next time, live simply, be grateful.